Good evening, sisters and brothers. This is Angela Davis. Carmen McRae is one of the few accomplished jazz singers today, and she appeared in San Francisco in November of 1977 at the Mocambo. While she was here, I had the opportunity to tape a really fascinating interview with her about her life as well as her music. This interview was recorded on November 18th, 1977.
First of all, I'd really like to say that I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to ask you a few questions, have a conversation with you about yourself and your music.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
And perhaps we could start off by talking a little bit about how you got into singing. I know that you were very interested in piano, and you took piano lessons when you were very young.
Right.
And a lot of people don't realize, I think, that you started off as a pianist.
Yeah.
Maybe you could talk a little bit about what made you go into it.
Well, I guess my father was an extreme lover of music, and he liked all kinds. You know, he liked semi-classical, he liked jazz, he liked operatic kinds of music. And I guess... I just guess I got that from him. But as far as the singing is concerned, that came later in my life. My parents wanted me to be musical some way, and I liked the piano. And at the age of 8, that's something that you're taking a chance on a child of 8 years old, saying, yes, I want to take piano lessons, because, as soon as the novelty dies off, there you are stuck with a piano and nobody to play it. But oddly enough, I really loved it. And so I did take 5 years of it. But the singing end of it came later. I at the age of 13, when I had stopped taking piano, I think then because while taking piano, of course, which was classical music, I was inclined, of course, to go out and buy sheet music of the popular songs, and play them. But and I guess from that it started, as wanting to be able to sing. And then I just thought about it. It was just a thought in the back of my mind, because I really am, I guess still, I suppose, very, very shy in regards to standing up and exposing myself to the public. You have to be a little daffy to even want to do that, number one. And number two, to take a chance of being laughed at. I think I thought about all that, And my parents were really sort of staid West Indian people who were of the old school of thinking that most people in show business were either dope fiends or drunkards or, stayed up caroused at all hours of the morning. And it's true. No, I shouldn't say that. No, that's not true. I'm just being facetious now. But I think that's why I didn't get too much encouragement at the beginning from them, But as I went on, and I found that when I got to the age of about 17, that I was thrown sort of into the circle of people who were in show business, and I got a little taste of it, and it was really very nice. And then my ambitions grew, but they still were foremost in my mind, but not enough for me to, as I said, stand up and make an idiot of myself. Until many years later, that I found that I went to Chicago and liked Chicago and wanted to stay, and found out that I had to sustain myself. And I'm not a daytime person, so that meant typing and secretarial work was out, unless they were going to start at 12 o'clock at midnight. So I with my knowledge of piano and the help of a friend who had heard me sing a few songs a few times, I got a job working in a club, playing piano and singing, which was the scariest event of my life. But oddly enough, you can overcome a lot of things if you just have the stamina. So I did. And I stayed in Chicago 3.5 years, and I found that I could work at playing and singing, because then I had the chance to do what I really wanted to do. Most is sing. And playing for myself, I'm not the greatest piano player in the world, but it was quite a boon to me as far as being able to work at my craft, which is what I did. And after I worked in Chicago and I found that I could make a living at playing and singing, which was heaven as far as I wasn't even looking beyond that. I decided to go back to New York. And you know how your parents always have your room. Whether you get to be 93, you still have a room in their house, right? So I decided to go back home. I said, if I can do what I'm doing in Chicago, I certainly can do it in my hometown, New York, which I did. I came back, and about a year or two later, I was approached about, somebody heard me and asked me to make a record, and that's how it really all started. Now, that just goes up to the beginning. Of course, things have just gone along. I've been quite fortunate and that I have accumulated people who appreciate what I do and who have kept me, doing the thing that I like to do best. And I guess I'm quite fortunate in that aspect,
Well, what was it like being around such jazz giants as Charlie Parker? And I was, reading that you were singing Yardbird Suite at a concert at Carnegie Hall at the time.
Well, he taught it to me. It was his tune. And a lot of people have asked me, well, who wrote the words? And Yard had told me that he wrote them, so I had to take his word for it. In fact, I haven't heard anybody dispute that up to now. And he taught it to me. And it's funny how which was years before I really, got started. But it was very odd about that because it was a song that was quite popular among jazz players, because they still play it today, and I don't know how many singers were doing it, but I do know that at about the time that it was on my show at the time, we were doing a concert at Carnegie Hall, and I kind of figured it out when they said how at the time he died, and I figured out that I was on stage at that time, and it was very possible just around that time that I was where the tune was placed in my show, that he could have been dying at that, just almost at that same. It really was kind of scary to me, But he was a fantastic. It's really very hard to describe him because he was really complex in a way. He, besides being such a just a brilliant musician, he was a very, very, very soft person. When I say soft, I mean in manner. And I think, a lot of people just relate to him as far as heroin is concerned. And one thing I'll say about Yard and using dope was that he never, and I was around him many, many times, he never, ever offered anyone, to get high or whatever, He, in fact, he sort of would make a point not to do that, and I've always appreciated him for that. I think that a lot of young kids want to emulate the people that they adore, and a lot of cats thought that the only way they could really play like Yard was to turn on, and that was not his secret at all. The reason for that was his own, and I don't know it, and I don't think anybody else knows why he. They can always talk about people having bad childhood and so forth. But a lot of times, let me tell you something, they get high because they like the feeling, and that's that. And you can take it, you can go and try to figure out, well, why would anybody, because it is slow death, and I do, they think you have a death wish. But I don't think that most of those guys in those days thought about that part of it. They didn't think, they just liked the feeling they got and didn't look, I'm sorry to say, into tomorrow, and that's the way it is, and that's the way it was, and, there's nothing you can talk about. But I learned a lot of being around him, and everywhere he played, of course, if it was anywhere I could get there, I was always there, and that helped a lot in what I do today,
There are very few singers today who, in my opinion, who can even begin to measure up to you in terms of the attention that you give to your music. Like you said, you know your craft, and it's obvious. You know.
Oh, yeah, I put in enough time. And, if you love something and you're given the chance to show your love for it, I think that you get to. So it grows on you. You grow on it. I don't know how to put it, but however, whatever I have to offer today, whatever it is valued at, it's only because of people who enjoy what I do, and they give me the incentive to do what I do and to try and do it better every time. Because that's what's so challenging about it, to just stand out there and say, hey, I know they dig me, and so, that's not fun. The fun is having them say to me every time, and I've had people say to me, they say to you, I guess you've heard this such a lot, but you're wonderful. Hell, I want to hear that as long as I open my mouth, because that's what makes me do whatever it is that they like that I do.
One of the things that's always fascinated me is how you decide the songs that you're going to sing. And I'm really interested in women and the situation that we find ourselves in today, our struggle for emancipation. And not too long ago, I did a show of women singing music about women.
Yeah.
And, one of the things that had to go into it was woman talk.
Yeah.
And then there's Only Women Bleed that you do. And, that says a whole lot today.
Absolutely.
When were those songs composed?
Well, Woman Talk, let's start with that. That, oddly enough, was written by, I don't know why I say oddly, but I do say oddly because the song sounds so American, but it was written by two British people. I first heard a dub of it somebody gave, which they give you, little 45 studio-made records of songs that you get to for your approval. And this one was given to me, and it was sung by Cleo Lane. Now, this has been a long time ago. This has been over 10 years ago, because I remember when I got this tune, and I remember where I was living, and I remember what a challenge it was. I said, this tune is absolutely insane. Who the hell can sing this thing other than this woman that's singing it? But anyway, I tried it, and then I met it was so typical, of what women do and what they, to hear it, it makes a lot of them sort of smile a little bit because it is true, And then I met these people who wrote this song. I cannot begin to describe to you first of all, the woman who wrote the lyric. Well, first of all, she had halitosis, which absolutely almost drove me up the wall. That was numero uno. And secondly, she was, if you looked at her and had ever heard the lyric of Woman Talk, you just could not have placed the two of them together. I cannot really go into describing, what she looked like. Other than she wasn't funny looking. I don't mean anything like that. But just the opposite looking person. I don't know what I expected her to look like, but that was not it, of telling me that she wrote these lyrics to this tune. And the guy who maybe wrote them, unless they collaborated on both music and lyrics, was this young. It was just the most opposite-looking couple you ever saw. Now, they weren't lovers or anything. They just collaborated on this particular song, and maybe they did on other songs, but I don't know. And so that's how I got that song.
For those of you who tuned in late, this is Angela Davis, and I'm talking to Carmen McRae in an interview which was recorded on November 18th, 1977.
There's another song that I'd like to ask you about, since we're talking about songs about women. Supper Time.
Oh, very interesting song. That song was written by Irving Berlin for Ethel Waters. And Miss Waters did it in a, God, I can never remember the name of it. The show it came from. Maybe it'll come to As Thousands Cheer. That was the name of it. I don't know what. Anyway, but it had it was a type of show that had vignettes, of different people doing whatever it is they did. They were, singers. They sang, blah blah blah. But this song came out of supposedly the story had to do with a woman. I guess this is back in the days of when segregation was a little more prominent than it is today. I guess this thing. I guess it still goes on. What I'm about to say, but we don't know too much about those things, as much as we should anyway. But it said it was about a woman whose husband had been lynched, and she had these children, and it was time for supper, and she just did not know how to explain to them that their father was not coming home anymore, and that it was. I remember the scene so well of her with this in sort of a kitchen with a red and white checkered tablecloth, and with the apron, she had an apron, and the kids were sitting down. It was really just tore my heart out, and I never forgot it. And that was also long before I thought that I would be a singer, But those are the songs that I remembered, and when I got the chance to do them, I did.
A little writing of your own too, haven't you?
Not that much. When I was in my teens, boy, I could write a song like that. And of course, it didn't mean anything. Half of them I've forgotten. It's just a couple or two or three of them that, if two or three, that I remembered that I did. And it was so funny because when I wrote them, I absolutely knew nothing about anything, And I would think that a writer, a songwriter, and particularly somebody who writes words, should really know something about the subject. And because I was about 18 and I wrote a song called It's the Last Time for Love. Now, what the hell did I know about it? What did I know about love? First, second, or last time? But those are, that's how that came about. But I haven't written anything in years, and I don't know why, other than I don't find it as easy now that I know so much. Now that I know a little more, let me put it that way,
Well, it's certainly not easy coming across the way you do. What's so incredible about your singing is that the music and the lyrics blend so beautifully, and oftentimes you have difficulty understanding a lot of singers. You have to strain to hear, and because you strain, you can't really absorb it and enjoy it. And the thing that I've always loved so much about your singing is it is so crystal clear.
Well, because I put a lot into it, and I'll be damned if I'm going to have you walk away and not know what I'm talking about. That's the main reason I'm here, is to tell you about these things. And if I'm going to sit down and have a serious conversation with you in a club, I want you to understand every word I'm saying. How can you enjoy? If I'm a storyteller and I'm telling you a story and you don't know what the hell the story is about, then it's just a waste of time. And I just refuse to waste my time.
What's it like being on the road so much? And I know that there's still a lot of racism, and I know that you must have problems dealing with clubs and...
Well, I'm going to tell you something, Angela. I don't have, oddly enough, through my years, I have really missed a lot of that. I don't know how or why, but it has never been confronted with me as far as any sort of... If there was any racism, it was hidden beautifully. Because I am one to speak up and say what I have to say, and a lot of times I find that I've intimidated a lot of people, or they have become intimidated. I don't intimidate anybody. They feel intimidated because I say what's on my mind, Consequently, people are sort of, kind of stay away. I think they think I'm a nut, which is cool with me. I love that. But if anything comes up to me that in any form, for anybody, I am, I have to say what I think. And I think maybe that's why they leave me alone, because I can scream a lot. And so being a woman, I think they can sort of, kind of, but it ain't like that with McRae. You better believe it. I just refuse. I have worked too hard, too long, and I know that whatever higher being there is, whether you want to call it God or a doorknob or a lamp, I know that there's a superior being. I know he's going to look out for me, and he's not going to look out for me if I don't look out for me. So when I look out for me, I look out for all the ladies, and hopefully that they will also look out for themselves, because then they're looking out for me too. It's the truth. After Sarah and Ella and Betty Carter, Anita O'Day and Ernestine Anderson and Etta Jones and myself, that's the end of the line. I mean, I'm sure I left out somebody, and I don't mean to. I'm not really here to call everybody's name. I'm just giving examples now. That there really is nothing left of this. Well, yeah, I tell you what, I'm going to tell you something that I've just been really thinking the past couple of weeks now. It's just an idea that came into my head. Is that I'm thinking seriously, let me put it before I get all kinds of calls, of giving coaching lessons. But you see, that's an individual thing, though, Angela. There's only one Angela Davis. There's only one Carmen McRae. There's only one of each of us. And the best you can do is, you can't put yourself into somebody else. You have to find what that individual has to offer. Yeah, I'm gonna look into it. I think I'm gonna do it.
And how do you think people are responding to jazz singing now?
Well, I think now they're getting desperate. They're more desperate for jazz singing now, because I guess maybe some of them have realized that the field is so limited, and that the women that are doing it, most of the women, the names anyway, are 50 and over, And Ella's over 50. I'm over 50. Sarah's over 50, Anita O'Day definitely is over 50. And I can go on, Helen Humes is over 50. Right. If you stop to think about it, it's really, 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 really sad. And who knows how long, one can go on doing. It's really very sad. And maybe if I could help any kind of way to sort of, because kind of help to keep it going.
Carmen, why do you think that jazz singing hasn't developed in the way it should have? Why is it that they?
Well, because I don't think it's an easy thing to do. That's why.
Right.
It isn't easy, and you have to be a stylist. You have to be someone distinctive. You have to be, the minute you open your mouth, somebody saying, "Oh, that's Sally Jones," or Mary Brown. Number one. And if you aren't distinctive, then people don't want to hear somebody that sounds like somebody else. They want to hear the original, And I think maybe that's what it is. It's not as easy as contemporary singing. If it's all contemporary singers have the same approach. They might not sound the same, but they all say words the same way, and they have triple. What a word has a...
Vibrato?
No, not vibrato, but they can take a word and stretch it, into... I can't get out the word I'm thinking of now. So they take a word that has 2 syllables and might make it into 4. You know what I'm saying? All of them do that. That's the end thing to do for contemporary singing. But it isn't for jazz. Jazz is a feeling. And you have got to have something a little bit different than the other jazz singer in order to sustain yourself. And it's not a matter of who you like best or who you like second or third. There's room enough for everybody out here. And you can just have to be yourself and just hope and pray that what you got to offer people want to hear. Simple as that.